Ready, Mary?
I am right now.
Okay. We're going to call to order our first hearing tonight, Milton Board of Appeals, 7:30 hearing upon the application of Niall.
Yep.
Niall Dowdle?
Yep.
Niall Dowdle, dated January 19, 2018, on file with the board for variances from the terms of 6C3 and 6D2 of the Milton zoning bylaw. The applicant proposes to continue to maintain a shed that violates the required left side and rear setback areas of the single-family home at 25 Mather Street, Milton. Section 6C3, side lot lines, prohibits the construction of any dwelling within 20 feet of the side lot line when the shed is located 1 feet, 2 inches from the side lot line. Section 6D2 prohibits the construction of any building within 8 feet of a rear property line when the shed is located 1 feet, 6.67 feet from the rear lot line. The property is located in a Residence C zoning district. All is set forth in the application. My name is Jeffrey Mullen. I'll be acting as the chairman tonight. With me is Virginia Donahue King and Kathleen O'Donnell, both members of the board. I have in the file the application to the board for the variances as I described in the advertisement, along with a letter from Joseph Prondak, the Milton Building Commissioner, to Mr. Dowdle, indicating that he needs these variances in order to maintain the shed that's currently in place at the premises. I've also got a copy of the names of the abutters to whom the notice was forwarded. I see that Mr. Dowdle is with us today. Welcome to the Board of Appeals. How can we help you?
How are you doing? I don't know what to say. The shed has been there for a number of years. I did do work around the house, which I had a permit and all for. I removed the fence from around the shed, and I did put vinyl siding on it. Maybe that made it stand out more. I know it is in violation and all. I didn't realise it at the time. So if it helped, I'd put the fence back up around it where you wouldn't see the shed as much from the street. I did go around all my neighbours, the ones that I did get in contact, and got signatures from everyone. I didn't have anyone to say that they were against me at the time. Just 3 copies. I just made 3 copies for you. The footprint is in the back too. I printed out the plot plan there for the back. You'll see it where it is in the back corner. I don't know if that helps you. That's 2 copies. I just made a couple of copies.
So let me make sure we know what we have here. What we've got is, you just gave us 2 copies.
The copies of the two of them are the same. Then.
2 identical
Yeah,
copies.
I just made a copy.
Right. And what it is it's 2.5 sheets
Yeah.
of signatures, and it says regarding shed at 25 Mather Street, Milton.
Most of these people did receive your letter in.
So you're saying that these people, by signing this, indicate that they support the location of the shed?
None of them said that about yes.
And when they signed this, did they have this with them?
They knew where the shed was. I explained exactly where it
Did
was.
you go door to door?
Yeah. Last Saturday. Just Saturday past.
Okay. Okay, is that your testimony? Is that all that you have
Yeah.
for us? Okay, let me
There's
just
not
make sure, I'm gonna restate what
There's
I
not
think
much
we're
else I
doing
can
here.
say.
Okay. So you said the shed has been there for a number of years?
Yeah.
Did you buy the property with the shed in place?
No.
Okay, so you put the shed up?
Yeah.
Like a number of years, how many years would that be?
I thought it was around 10 or 11 years ago. Joe,
Time flies.
But Joe says it's not there.
What did Joe say?
Joe said he went back to 2007, it wasn't there. I think he said it was there in 2006, 2005, 2006 at the time.
It was there 10 years, 11 years ago?
No, it wasn't there 11
It
years
was
ago.
not there 11 years ago?
No.
Okay, so you were right, 10 years?
No, I think it was around 8 or 9 years ago.
8 or
It
9,
was
okay, so it's been there 8 or 9 years?
Yes.
Okay. And did you build the shed in place, or did you buy the shed and bring it in?
No, I built it. I'm a carpenter.
You built it? So it's a custom shed?
Yeah.
Does it match the house?
Yep.
Okay. And you built it right up in the corner where you had where you had a fence?
I had it fenced in, yes.
And was your fence?
This is my fence, yeah.
And what kind of fence was it?
It was an old wooden fence that I had cedar.
Stockade fence?
Yeah.
And you took that down?
Yes, and I replaced it. There was an old driveway out to the rear of my house. If you
Right.
look at the plot plan,
Yeah.
there was an old driveway. I've got teenagers coming up driving now, so I moved the fence back a little bit so I could get a parking space because the teenagers are going to need the front parking space at the front of the house.
Okay.
And the car I have to buy for them, of course, too, by the way.
Of course, yeah. You took the fence down?
and I moved the fence back. So the shed is more visible than it was. If you want, I'll put the fence
I
back.
don't know what we want, we're just trying to figure out why we're here.
If it helps, I say.
I don't know what helps, so we'll figure that out, okay. So you took the fence down, you put the fence back up in a different location,
Yes, but
and making the shed more visible.
correct.
And then somebody complained.
I presume so.
You don't really know,
No.
because otherwise you wouldn't be here,
I got
right?
the letter. No.
You didn't turn yourself in.
I normally don't do things
Okay,
like that.
fine. So somebody called and said the shed is too close to the property
I
line.
presume so, yeah.
And did Mr. Prondak call you into town hall
Joe, I had a meeting with Joe in here.
on this issue?
Yes, on this
You
issue.
came in to see him?
Yes, when he got the letter, I went in, made an appointment to make.
He got what letter?
When I got the letter.
I know, but what prompted him to give you the letter?
He said that someone else in the neighbourhood
Called them.
applied for a
Okay,
shed.
fine.
And then they
This
turned
letter
around.
says that, Frontex letter.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm wondering, yeah, okay.
He said someone else applied for a shed, and then when they got turned down, they turned around and said, well, what about your man down the corner?
Uh-huh.
That's the way I'm picking it up
Okay,
off Joe.
okay, fine, okay, all right, okay. So it almost doesn't matter, we just wanted to understand the circumstances under which you're here.
I understand.
And as of today, is the shed in the location that's indicated on this?
Yeah, it hasn't moved.
But the fence is in a slightly different location.
Yeah, I can point that out where it is.
You could, yeah, could you do that for us?
Do you want me to just draw? I'll draw where.
That'd be great.
I'll draw where the old fence was.
Okay, thank you.
So if you can. Yeah, sorry. I'm a bad drawer of that as well.
Yeah.
The fence does continue the whole way around my property.
Yeah.
All right? And the fence was here.
Yeah.
I moved the fence back to here, just to get this here pit.
The fence is here now.
Yes. And I took this piece away.
And you did a driveway where there wasn't one before?
There was a driveway always there,
Oh, okay.
but I do have a driveway at the front of my house as well.
So this is a little curb cut here.
Yeah. It was always there, that's been there for.
So you can see the fence from the,
Correct.
from the
That's what I
sidewalk?
said. If it is a solution, I'll re-fence it.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't want to talk about solutions yet. Okay. So, all right, so for the people for the millions of people at home who are watching this, what's happened here is the applicant, Mr. Dowdle, has relocated a fence that was formerly enclosed and you really couldn't see from Birch Street. You can now see because you've moved the fence in order to make
Yeah.
for more parking area for
Correct.
your teenager who's now driving.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the situation is that the fence has been relocated and the shed has been exposed. And you must enter the shed from inside the lot, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a gate on the fence?
On the fence, yes, there is.
Okay. All right, let me ask if I know this is, there was a lot of questions at the beginning. Let me ask if my fellow board members have any questions of the applicant at this time.
So you never got a building permit when you did the
I
shed?
didn't even realize I needed one for a garden shed, to tell you the truth.
Well, it's a pretty big shed. So is that what you use it for gardening or what? You got houses?
There's a bit of everything in that.
Yeah,
I mean, bikes,
yeah.
you name it.
And one other thing is that is the neighbor here?
The neighbour right beside me is actually one of the ones that signed it, said they were elected. Number 10 Birch Street,
Okay,
Thomas Butler.
okay.
He's the direct butter to. He even said if he wanted to come up here tonight, he'd come up.
Mrs. King?
I'm wondering also about who's across Birch Street from there and to your right?
That is, what do you call her? What do you call Debbie, isn't it? They were good as well.
What number is that?
Oh, that's on Rose Street.
It's on Rose. Did you say, what was it, Dennehy?
No. Derek and Eric. Hold on. Eric actually signed it.
And they're on this?
They are on it, yeah. One second.
Okay. Kennedy, Fong, Rowley, Mantville?
No, he's
And
further down
Battleton?
Rose.
Oh, Eric Lynch.
That's him.
Eric Lynch, okay.
Sad I don't know my neighbour's second name, so I do know the first name, so.
And then to your right, who's that?
To the
If you're looking at your house from the front, who's to the right?
right of me is, no. No, that's, what do you call it? No, next door to us. Paul and, that's, yeah, number 20. He'd be on Matter Street. He'd be top, second page, top, 21 Matter Street.
Paul O'Neill.
Paul O'Neill, yeah.
No, I don't have any more questions right now.
Okay, let me ask if there's anybody in the audience who'd like to speak in opposition to the application. Let me ask if there's, hearing none, let me ask if there's anybody in the audience who'd like to speak in support of the application. There is no such person. Is there anybody who has any questions of the applicant or the board at this time? No such person. Okay, is that all your testimony?
All I can say,
Okay,
yeah.
Does any of the boards have, any of the members of the board have questions before we close the evidentiary portion of the hearing? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, let me just, before we close, I just have a couple of questions for you, Mr. Dowdy. You did testify that the shed is,
Oh, sorry.
okay.
From here?
No, come on up, yeah.
Okay.
Welcome to the Board of Appeal.
My name is Victoria.
Just have a
Gorino.
seat.
Sit down,
Have a
that's
seat,
fine.
yeah.
Okay. I just want to know what the bylaws are.
Okay, have a seat, we'll
Okay.
explain.
You know, I pretty much, but I see what the bylaws are, setback. Okay, let me begin this way, okay? I went to the building inspector,
Just give us your name again.
Victoria Gorino,
Could you spell your last name?
Guarino.
Okay,
I live on Clay Street, 18 Clay Street, Milton. Okay, I went to the building inspector. Behind my driveway, I asked him, I says, can I build something 4x4? I want to put up my lawnmower,
snowball.
my snowblower underneath there. He says, no, you can do that or not. Why? Setbacks, it is the law, the bylaw. Well, that's fine, if you can do that. You understand that? And I point at this gentleman over here, how come that thing is done over there? Here we go again.
No.
And then I says, it's done, they do, they this. And I said to the building inspector, I say this, not because I'm racist or anything like that. Do I have a black skin? What's wrong with me? I only do 4x4, like this. It's my car, it's Clay Street, it's my car, 4x4. I want to put the lawnmower underneath. That's all I did. Okay? Okay.
Okay, so let me just,
Okay.
I think you should withdraw your racist remark, okay? Could you just do that, please, for the record?
The what?
The racist remark that you made, could you withdraw that for the record, please?
Well, I said to the
Yeah,
gentleman,
just, I don't want to hear that at the Milton.
Well, that's fine. That's
Okay,
what I
we'll
said.
just note that for the
Fine,
record.
that's fine. No
Okay,
problem.
I don't know about your circumstances, but I'll tell you that.
That's what I did.
I hear you.
That's the 100% the truth.
Okay, I'm going to answer your question. Just give me a minute. I gave you time, okay? I don't know where your property is. I know you said what your address is, but we don't know what zoning area
Same
your
zone,
property is in.
50 feet away, 100 feet away.
The setback is a 20-foot side setback and an 8-foot rear setback. So that's what required. So the applicant here is asking us to vary the terms of the bylaw. And we're going to consider that right now. So that's what the hearing is for.
That's fine.
Okay.
Is that what you wanted me to say? Yes, that's fine.
I don't want you to say, I don't need you to say anything.
I understand that maybe my language it doesn't express what I want to say. I went in there just for one thing there, to build a little shed over there, 4x4, to put my snowblower underneath. He
Okay.
refused me. That's it.
Right, and he also indicated that he refused him, which is why he's in front of us.
Well, then I wouldn't know that if he refused it or not.
Well, he did, because I referred to the letter in the initial application. That's why he's here. He got the letter from the building inspector, and the building inspector said that it's in violation. It needs to be removed unless the Board of Appeals gives a variance, which is
Fine.
why we're
Whatever you
here.
people want to do is up to you people.
Okay,
That's all, that's fine.
okay.
But I want to build something in there too. That's all I want, if I can. If I don't, hey,
Okay, that's good, that's your right.
all right.
And you can apply to the building inspector, and if he issues a letter like this, and you want to come before the Board of Appeals, then we'll hear your hearing, just like we're hearing Mr. Dowdle's.
I will do that.
Okay.
That's no problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else want to be heard by the board? Okay, so the testimony, Mr. Dowdle, I was asking you, your testimony is that the shed is similar in appearance to the home,
Yep.
and they're painted the same color,
Yep.
et cetera.
I actually put new, when I worked on the house there, I have a permit at the moment for the house. I actually put cedar impressions on it to match the exact same colour as the house.
And is your testimony also that every direct abutter has been notified, or you've personally spoken to them?
Yeah,
And they have no objection?
yeah.
Okay. All right, is there any other questions from the members of the board?
Actually, just one. Was there a shed there before?
I have no idea. When I bought it, there was little sheds everywhere.
Yeah.
There was like garden sheds and vegetable plats when I bought the house, which was 2004. So,
So, we're going to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing and debate.
pavement, I think, more than a shed, to tell you the truth.
Consider the application of Mr. Dowdle in accordance with the open meeting law. Mrs. King, would you like to be heard?
I'm still thinking.
Okay. Mrs. O'Donnell?
Miss O'Donnell.
Ms.
Yeah,
O'Donnell.
Yeah, Ms., whatever. I'm troubled by the fact that it's only like a foot and a half away from the side yard setback. When the minimum is 8. I could see that it could come back, I mean, he has this extension that goes out that's closest to the boundary line. So even if it sort of took that extension out to move it back from the sideline, that would be better than what it is right now. And I was questioning about the fact that it wasn't screened at all, and the answer to that is apparently not.
Yeah, yeah. Mr. Dowdle, can you move the shed? Is it movable?
I very much doubt it, without taking it down. That's the truth. I wouldn't say I could, no.
Yeah, and what's forcing it, what is causing the shape to be irregular like that? Cross shape as opposed to perfectly
way I built
rectangular?
it.
What is in
If you
there?
want it, I'll take that corner off you, if it helps.
Yeah. Yeah, that's your point.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. JD, do you have any,
I just, I'm thinking that it's not so much that it's already within the boundary that needs to be kept, the setback boundary. So I'm not sure if taking off, a couple of feet is going to make a real difference or not. It's still kind of a large structure there that's not too many feet away. I'm not exactly sure what this.
Well, it's
Looks like-
1.67 from that L, from that larger.
It would be-
boundary,
it would be-
Right, so
They don't
that,
have a dimension on that. other
Right.
I would
So it's
say it's
looking
around
to
another
be-
2 foot, roughly.
Foot.
Roughly.
yeah,
No, something like that.
according to
probably a little
that.
more,
Yeah.
probably a little more.
Roughly, I'd say it's another 2 foot.
And we need to be, let me look again, 8
Yeah.
feet. I wish I knew what it was, because to grant a variance, we oftentimes will grant a variance if it's de minimis, meaning, if it's not a big difference. And and we're looking at 8 feet versus, I'm not sure exactly what's still within it. It looks to me like it might be about 5 feet there. I guess, I also am aware of the fact that, this is a hardship. It was built in error. And it would be, a financial setback to have to change that up and all, but I don't know.
Yeah, but who built something that big?
It's pretty
without a
large.
permit,
Yeah, it's pretty darn large.
as a real estate attorney.
Yeah.
You should get a permit for that.
I'm troubled. I'm troubled by it. I'm troubled by it.
So here are a couple thoughts I have. One is, I think, it was built in error, but it was also built innocently. And it has been there for a number of years without complaint. I think a lot of it's been exacerbated by the lack of screening in this particular location. So I think at a minimum, the building needs to be screened. But I also think that, especially with respect to the rear lot, the rear setback, which I know is 8 and the side is 20, but in this case, it's almost like a front because it's on a corner. I'm less offended by the Birch Street frontage than the rear frontage, and think it probably does make sense to kind of square the building off. Recognizing that that's not as, I understand what you're saying, Ginny, about it being de minimis. It's really not de minimis given the extent of the variance. And, the testimony's been that that can happen. It would lessen the encroachment into the setback and yet wouldn't require the hardship of removing the entire structure when the harm seems to be relatively small in light of the testimony of the neighbors that have universally supported it. And the fact that this was, from the testimony, an innocent mistake. So I mean, my sense is I'm less troubled. I'm less troubled by it. I think sometimes you think about a variance like this, whether in the first instance would the board grant it, perhaps not, frankly. Is really weighing the maximum use of the lot versus the protection of the bylaw and what people's reasonable expectations are. But what's done is done. And on the facts, I think I could support something along the lines of what I suggested. But I'm
Yeah.
anxious to hear from my fellow colleagues on the board.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if it had been up there for a full-on 10, you wouldn't be able to bring it to
It's a good point. That's a good point.
If I do put the fence back up, I actually measured it the other day, if I did put the fence back up, where the roof starts on it, it's only like about 9 inches that you would see, if you can understand, where the fence came across, the shed is actually only 9 inches above the...
Yeah. It's
It's not-
possible to put the fence back up, though.
I'll go and
No,
get...
that's what you said, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
I'll go and get the
that's
PVC
not-
fence and I'll get that sorted.
Yeah, okay.
If that helps.
Okay. Well, it will help. I assure you it will help.
What?
I assure you it will help.
All right, no, that's...
I think the screening being a part of this is absolutely necessary under the circumstances, particularly where it was noticed because it was not there. And then I'm not sure how I feel about the other piece of it.
You think that might be a little bit aggressive?
A little bit.
Yeah, that's fine, that's fine. I'm just suggesting it as a reaction to what Ms. O'Donnell indicated was a troubling aspect of the application. I do believe it's screened back there. Are there some type of hedge along that rear line?
Of a new fence.
No, in the back?
Behind the shed, it's a new fence.
What, is there not trees back there too?
No.
Oh.
I planted new evergreens, but they're not there.
They're not high enough.
They're like me, small.
I thought I saw something.
But they're coming.
Yeah, okay.
I
Okay.
I see what your point, but my problem is that, I get worried about the fact that this plan, it's so close to the line, and I'd be curious whether another surveyor will find that it's over the line. And so that's sort of my thought about taking it back a little bit is that then you don't have the issue of some surveyor doing another shot and saying, oh, wait a minute, you're sitting on this person's property line.
That was surveyed now this year.
Yeah,
All right.
this guy,
Yeah.
you know, everybody knows
Well,
that
I hope he's doing it right.
there's surveyors all over the place.
What do you say, Ginny?
If you were asking to put something there with this configuration, I would definitely say that that has to come off.
I agree.
I think it's perhaps a little harsh to say that it needs to come off, since it is already there, and by virtue of the fact that it is already there is really why we're looking at if this needs to,
But it can come off, you said. It can come off.
What, that corner? Well, I'll make it come off. If it has to come off, it has to come off.
Nobody's saying it has to come off tomorrow.
No, I know.
But
I'm going to Disney with the kids tomorrow, so. Actually, I'd rather take the shed down. It would be cheaper.
well, I'm thinking if it's surveyed in the future and it finds out that it is on Mr. Butler's land, then
Okay.
deal with it then. Might be cheaper to deal with it now rather than inflation coming in, but, I leave that to you.
That's a good point.
So, yeah, so I think that had it not been already built, I would have made sure that that was cut off before we gave a variance for that. But inasmuch as it's there, and there is a solution that it could come down in the future, I would say I would let it stay.
Okay.
Okay, so I think I'm hearing a little consensus of the board. The board is, I will speak for my colleagues, they can vote and they can speak in their own voice, but the sense of the board is that the variants have merit largely on the fact that the shed is there and has been there for nearly a decade. And as Mrs. O'Donnell indicates, a violation of the zoning bylaw has a 10-year statute of limitations, and that has a certain amount of legal significance to us. Now, the testimony was that you didn't make the 10 years. You made
No,
eight. You made 8 years.
Yeah, I said, Joe put me up in
But that it
2004.
does have a certain level of legal significance that, and my point was that it had been there for a fairly long time without objection, and it was, from the testimony, innocently constructed in error. You had said that you didn't know that you needed a building permit. Well, you're on notice that you need a building
Yes,
permit.
I know.
And we have your name on file as a Milton resident. But the testimony has also been that the neighbors universally support you in the form of a petition signed by some 25 or so people, and that has weight, and that may not be the same in another area, but you've got support of your neighbors, and the board has always taken that into consideration in the consideration of a variance. And there's also been testimony that there's a hardship, and a hardship is part of the test that we apply in the granting of a variance. So my sense is from the board is that the fence needs to come back up. There needs to be some visual barrier, approximately the height of the shed, to shield the view from Birch Street. And that the board is not inclined to make you modify the shed at this time, but put you on notice that there could be an issue there, given its close proximity to the property line, but that in all other respects, the variance has merit and would be granted. Is that the sense of the board? All right, all those in favor of granting the variance on those conditions, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. You have your variance, Mr. Dowdle. Now, it'll take 3 or 4 weeks or so for us to write it up. You'll be back by Disney. You'll be back from Disney at that point.
I'll have the fence up in a week.
You could deal with Mrs. Fitzgerald on the processing of the variance. When you do receive it, approved by the town clerk, you'll want to record that at the Norfolk Registry in Dedham.
All right.
So it'll run with the title to your property.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dowdle, thank you very much.
Do I come in and see you again? Or? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have fun.
Can you not have fun?
Okay. Ginny?
Actually, let me do this one because this one,
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that
Okay,
one from
we're gonna-
before.
I'm going to call the order,
Can you push the button on your mic and turn it off? It's a green?
Yes.
okay, we're going to call to order our second hearing, a 7:45 hearing, February 15th. This is the application of James and Amy Delaney, dated January 25, on file with the board for the renewal of a special permit from the terms of section 3A9 of chapter 10 of the bylaw, so as to continue use of a temporary in-law apartment within the existing dwelling located at 150 Pleasant Street, which is located in Residential C. Section 3A9 of the bylaw limits temporary in-law apartments within single-family dwellings only. My name is Jeffrey Milton. I'll be acting as the chairman. With me are Kathleen O'Donnell and Virginia Donahue King, board members. I see that, is it Mrs. Delaney?
Yes,
Mrs.
it's
Delaney
Amy
has
Delaney.
joined us. Well, welcome to the Board of Appeals. How can we help you? Oh, let me, I'm sorry.
No,
Let me
it's
just
okay.
explain to the
Yep.
folks at home what I've got. I've got the application that was made by Mrs. Delaney for the continuance of a special permit for the temporary in-law apartment, no change in status. I've also got the special permit that was issued by the board on May 14, 2014, following a hearing on this very same matter, and I understand from the application on the very same facts.
True.
So what's happening here is, in 2014, you applied and received approval for a temporary in-law apartment at 150 Pleasant Street, and you're here to renew that, to extend its term.
True.
Welcome
yes.
to the board. How
Thank
can we-
you.
how can
Thank
we
you.
help you?
So that was the renewal of a initial permit. My husband and I lived in Milton. My parents lived close by, and unfortunately, we had the loss of my father at a young age. And so at that time, we were looking to upsize our house. That was in 2009, I believe, for the initial permit. And my mom was initially looking to downsize as well with the loss of my father. So we had proposed that we actually build an in-law to actually have my mom stay with us and give her some freedom of landscaping and all of the upkeep of a house, even though she's quite young and robust and travels and does all those things. So my mom actually lives in the in-law apartment at 150 Pleasant Street with my husband and I and our 3 children who are 18, 16, and 13 now. And it's wonderful. They're growing up with their grandmother in our house, and she also has privacy and space on her own and doesn't have to shovel or rake or do
Right.
those things. Yeah, so that's why we're looking for a renewal of this.
Okay, let me, for the record, I'll indicate that I've got a note here from Anne Marie McAuliffe at 5 Mather Street, who says she's got no objections to the renewal, so I want to make note of that. Let me ask you, this in-law apartment has a separate entrance?
Yes, it's through the
Cooking
garage.
facilities?
Yes.
And it has sleeping facilities?
Yes, it's one, when we did the initial permit with the building inspector, who obviously, the town was very involved in the construction of that, it's only a 1-bedroom, because I think, if I recall right, that may be the.
Yeah, that's,
Or whatever
yeah.
that is, yeah, so we just went with what the laws were at that time.
And I know you said that your mother-in-law is young. How old would she be?
So it's my mother, and
Oh,
she
your mother,
is,
I'm
that's
sorry.
okay, no, that's okay, she is now 68 years old.
68, very young.
Yeah, very young.
Okay, let me ask if there's questions of the fellow board members of Mrs. Delaney.
There's none for me because I remember the original one in 2009.
Yeah, do you, Virginia? Yes, yep.
So,
Yeah, my husband and my mom were not available tonight, or you would have seen them,
Okay.
but, yeah.
Ms. O'Donnell?
No, I mean, I've looked at this temporary in-law apartment bylaw a lot when I've been
Great.
speaking at panels about this, and so certainly seems like and I see that you're coming in now before it expires. Which I think
Yes.
was the problem the last
That's
time.
right, how talk about time flying, I know.
Let me ask if there's anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this application. Seeing none. Ask if there's anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the application. Seeing none. There's nobody in the audience who wishes to be heard on the application. Does the board have any more questions of the applicant?
No.
We're going to consider the application right now in accordance with the open meeting law. Ms. O'Donnell, you wish to be heard?
I would vote in support of extending the special permit.
Mrs.
Me
King?
too. No reason not to.
As would I. We wish you good luck with your, board will issue an amended decision extending the term for an additional period in accordance with the terms of the bylaw. I would recommend that the term be 4 years as the original one was, given the age of the woman who lives there. And we wish you good luck. You give us about a month or so and work with Mrs. Fitzgerald to
great. Thank you.
obtain the approval and get it recorded at the Norfolk Registry, and you'll be all set.
Great, thank you.
Okay, good luck.
Thanks.
Just the one you wanted?
Oops.
Okay. We're almost on time. That was quick.
Yeah, that was good.
We'll wait for Mrs. Fitzgerald for a minute, okay? What's that, Mary? Okay, we're going to call to order our last hearing upon the application of Evan Plomaritis? Plomaritis.
Sound like a disease.
And Nicolette Plomaritis and Nicolette Smith, dated January 16, 2018, on file with the boards from a variance from the terms of Section 3A7H of the bylaw. The applicants propose to build a two-family home on parcel 42 as shown on Assessors Map C5, adjacent to the single-family home located at 28 Blue Hill Avenue. Section 3A7H of the bylaw provides for construction of two-family homes upon the issue of a special permit by the board, provided that the lot on which it would be constructed lies between two existing lots on the same side of the street and within 100 feet, and on each of those lots exists a two-family dwelling. Lot 42 lies between the homes of 28 and 38 Blue Hill Avenue. Since 28 Blue Hill Avenue is a single-family home, this proposal does not qualify for the required special permit. The subject property is located in a Residence C zoning district. All is set forth in the application and on file. My name is Jeffrey Mullen. I'll be acting as your acting chairman. With me is Virginia Donahue King and Kathleen O'Donnell, members of the Board of Appeal. I have with me in the application signed by Attorney Marion McKettrick, who I see is with us. Good evening, Mrs. McKettrick. It's good to see you again. And as well as a letter from the Milton Building Inspector to Mr. Plomaritis, Plomaritis and Ms. Smith, indicating a denial of the application and the right to seek relief from the requirement through the variance process. Please contact Mrs. Fitzgerald. And a letter from Mrs. McKettrick indicating her position on the granting of the variance, along with, as is Mrs. McKettrick's custom, a fair bit of information on the title to the property. Thank you, Mrs. McKettrick, which I will find very interesting. There's also a list of the abutters that received notice of this hearing. I see that Mrs. McKettrick and the applicants have joined us. Welcome to the Board of Appeals.
Thank
How can
you.
we help you?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And this is Nicolette Smith, Evan Plomaritis, and we've been in communication for quite some time. They bought the property this year, and they've been studying. They are in the main house, which is the 1900 existing house, so they've been doing work on the house. And they've been looking at their lot and consulting with the building commissioner. And they came to me to ask me to, building commissioner suggested that the lot, the second lot, there are two recorded lots here, might be pre-existing non-conforming legal buildable lot, but asked them to have research done by somebody to see if that was true. So that's what I did, and that's why I gave you this rather
I read it.
thing. Thank you.
I did too.
And basically what you do to look at that issue is you have to look at the title history of the lot, the two lots, existing lots, which are owned together. One has a house on it. You have to look at the title history for every lot that adjoins those two lots. And adjoins means shares a lot line more than a point. So if it's just a corner, it's not adjoining, but otherwise it is, and it means it's on the same side of the street. Those are the definitions of adjoining that have evolved from case law. So I did that. I looked at all of those adjoining lots, and I did not find any common ownership that would have created a larger lot or might have taken one of these lots out and put it into a different status. I found that these two lots were owned together from before 1938, when the zoning bylaw was enacted in Milton, and after 1938 until now, when these present owners have purchased it. The house has been through a lot of changes in the last 2 decades, including a foreclosure. And it is on the upswing, I would say, at the present time. There's some good investment being made in the house. And I happen to have personal knowledge of the house. Many years ago, one of my children used to know the little boy who lived here, and he said he loved the house because it's an old, interesting Victorian inside. So the existing house is an interesting house, and I'm really glad to see that these owners are interested in taking care of it and making it better. The use that they are proposing to make of the lot next door will be either a single family or a two-family. We're here before you tonight to ask you whether you would consider granting a variance to allow a two-family. We don't qualify under the special permit provision of Milton's bylaw, or the applicants don't, because the bylaw requires that there be a two-family house on both sides of the lot where you want to build a new two-family. And their house is on one side, and that's a single family. On the other side, there is a two-family. What the applicants have done is they have gone around and talked to their neighbors. They're relatively new to the neighborhood, so they had to introduce themselves and then explain what they had in mind. And all of their immediate abutters were supportive, and the neighbors just to the right who own the two-family, which I believe is a condominium form of ownership at present, were quite supportive and helpful and provided advice and sort of said, you should think about certain things. And so we have, I believe you have a list of signatures. Where is that list?
I didn't really expect to get them so easily, but I just wanted to knock it on the
May I
head, and
just-
everybody seemed to be in support of it.
We're going to have to give this to the board, so do you need what's on the back?
No.
I think we'll survive.
And you may, I think I think it would be a good idea for you to tell us where these addresses are in general, if you,
Sure thing.
because
Yeah.
sometimes the board, it's a little bit difficult to sort it through. There's also a letter here from Carl Johnson and Harriet Wilby.
They're right next to us.
So as you face the house from Blue Hill Avenue, the right or the left?
They're right.
The right, okay. So there's the
This
letter,
house.
the neighbors to the right. They're in a two-family house. And then we have signatures of support from additional neighbors, so.
Yeah, it's support from all the direct abutters, and then we just kind of reference this little map here. We just walked around this block.
Yep.
And everybody who was home over the 2 weekends that went out, it was the Super Bowl weekend and the weekend before. Just knocking on doors, and
Got them before they got depressed.
some people were less than thrilled to see us, but
Okay, so those are those signatures. We've also brought with us tonight these color photographs, aerial views, which give you, I think, a very good idea of, it's only the roofs in some cases, but I mean, it's also, from other angles. So these are your large-size plans, let's see. We have larger versions of the building plans if you'd like to see those. But so these are photographs, and we can leave these with the board. Is that right?
absolutely.
So, in general, this is a neighborhood,
That's a good
this is a
area.
block before Mattapan Square. It's very close to a three-way intersection. It's extremely busy, there's a lot of traffic. There are many two-families in the neighborhood. It's not all two families right around this particular house. There is, however, a mixed-use apartment building, which is also a pre-existing non-conforming legal use on the corner on the next block, so very close by. There's an apartment building that has, I think, between 6 and 8 apartments. I couldn't figure out what the exact number was. And it has commercial uses on the first floor. So it's a fairly unusual setting. It's so close to the MTA. It's, it's a block from the T. And there are numerous bus lines that come into Mattapan Square. So it is a very practical location for apartment living. Someone who who lives here and rents, although space has been could be created on the lot for 4 cars, you wouldn't need 2 cars if you lived here. You could definitely use public transportation if you worked in the Boston, in Boston or on the way into Boston. So from a development standpoint, in order to put the investment into building, if you decide to build a single-family house here, certainly you'll be able to sell it. You might not be able to sell it for the price that you would be able to sell a house in some other neighborhoods because it's so busy and it's so close to Mattapan Square, which is really congested. But if you build a 2-family house and you have 2 apartments and you're living in the house next door, it's a good use of this property for this particular setting. And it's also definitely an improvement. I mean, they've already worked on improving the existing house. Any new, well-constructed, well-designed building in this location is an improvement in the neighborhood and is a very positive thing to have happening. So, we're here before you to see what you think. I don't know if you might need more information. We've talked about it a lot. I've been in this neighborhood myself within 2.5 blocks for 40 years. So I've watched, a lot of things, a lot of improvements and some deterioration. And I think that in the case of this particular application, I hope the board will at least consider the possibility that this might be a good way to develop this lot. And the design you had in your materials, but the color, the larger drawings are a little bit nicer.
Don't worry, we're not doing that color green, I already told you.
But, so I'm just going to pass these down to you. It's a little bit nicer to look at. This is a type of house that you see as infill housing around some of the neighborhoods near us in Boston. It's a narrower building. It's high enough so that you can have quite a bit of space in the apartments, and it goes back into the lot. This is not going to be a lot that will have a lot of yard. It won't anyway. And in order to provide parking for 4 cars, a lot of the backyard will have to be available for cars. This is on a state highway, so in theory you can park on the highway, but if it's snowy or something like that, it's very important to be able to get the tenants or owners' cars off the street. So I believe that having 4 parking spaces is still important. So I don't know do you have anything to add just from a descriptive standpoint?
Oh, you touched on everything perfectly.
Okay.
Let me just get people caught up on what we've got here. We've got several things that have been submitted by the applicant, including a plot plan of the property on Blue Hill Avenue, prepared by Ernest Branch, dated November 18, showing number 28 Blue Hill Avenue, and then next door proposed 2-family dwelling as shown on those drawings, along with an aerial photo of the property and another aerial photo in perspective. So the property that you currently own, you've significantly renovated it?
Well, we're working on it.
The process.
Yeah,
Working on it.
the
It's-
process.
So this is a relatively recent photo?
That's today.
This is today? So it's all been, you're in the process of recladding it?
Yeah, we're bringing it back to, we just pulled all the vinyl off, so we're gonna go back with the shakes.
Are you a contractor?
Yeah.
All right, and we've got a letter from Carl Johnson and Harriet Wilby, who live next door at 36, which is
The
Here.
white 2-family or beige 2.
Which is here, okay. We are writing to state we have no objection to Evan and Nicolette's building a 2-family home at parcel 42, where they're next door neighbors, and the owners of 36 to 38 Blue Hill Avenue, a 2-family home. The neighborhood is a erratic mixture of 1- and 2-family homes. The addition of another 2-family will not change its character, especially since the design chosen for the 2-family home will fit with the older homes surrounding it. Okay, so that's what we have, and we've got a set of drawings of the proposal, and is your testimony that if you were granted relief, that is the home that you will build?
Yes.
So I just have a couple of preliminary questions. You bought this as one lot, two lots, two different owners? What's the situation?
I bought a house with a big yard.
You bought a house with a big yard,
in Milton, and then
and you realized then the deed came in, it was two lots.
actually
separate
I went
lots.
to the building department asking to put a big dormer on the third floor. And the commissioner looked at me and was like, yeah, you could do that, but then you wouldn't be able to build on that lot. And I was like, hang on a second, what are we talking about here?
Yeah. So the lot, and Marion, I know that you said this, but the lot had been in common ownership for how long?
It, well before 1938.
Before 19
Yes, way back.
And it,
1910 or something like
1910, I
that?
think.
and it was in
yeah.
common ownership all the way through? And it's still in common ownership? Okay. And was it always used as one lot?
Exactly as it is now. This house is the same house that's
This
been
was
there
the
all-
yard for the house?
Yes, there's never been
Well,
anything.
it wasn't much of a yard.
There was nothing, this is clear right now only because these new owners cleared it. It was covered with brush, trees, and junk, as I understand it.
40 buildings about
A lot of
this
poison
big.
ivy.
It had never been cleared, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if it had ever been cleared, but it didn't look like it had been cleared in the recent past.
The home that's proposed, is it otherwise compliant with zoning with the exception of the two-family? In other words, the setbacks, the height?
Yeah, they have a full building plan
well-
that they've given the building commissioner. The only thing the building commissioner told them was to make sure that they verify the height versus the area. I don't know, there's some way of measuring it, the way we allow height. So it's in his letter.
Yeah.
That comment's in his letter. I can't quote it
To not
exactly.
exceed 35
The
feet
letter would be
elevations
to
or
say
anything like
that you would, if they were allowed to build this house as a two-family, you would want to say that providing whatever he says they have to.
Yeah, he
make
says that
sure
the
is
plan
correct.
wasn't clear enough on what the building height was.
The reason is that the surveyor has to do an elevation measurement for the lot. And that wasn't provided at the time that you gave it to they gave it to the building commissioner. He has to do the elevation measurement. It's a level lot, it looks level to me. But he has to do that measurement before the building commissioner can say for sure that the house is exactly complying with the height requirement. So
And
that's
the-
what that's about.
And the lot, is it otherwise able to construct a single-family home, and the only reason that you're here is because you want a two-family? Is that correct?
That's correct. The building commissioner has said that that is the case.
Okay. Questions from my members of the board?
Well, I was really stunned to read our zoning provision on grandfathered lots, because I'm involved as an expert in another case in another town, and I couldn't believe how generous this is.
It is.
It's unbelievable.
It's unusual in
Yeah,
many
very
respects.
unusual. Yeah, I haven't seen, I've read a lot of grandfathered lot provisions. This one's pretty amazing. So I got myself over the hurdle of the fact that it doesn't merge under our zoning, so that took me a while to read through all of that. The only concern I have, and I used to live actually over on Brush Hill Road, so I'm familiar with this neighborhood. And you're right, I mean, the two families are all over the place, so that, this looks like a great infill. What concerns me is the paving coverage, the lot coverage, the lack of any kind of open space. I wonder, and then I guess the other thing is, going forward, is the idea that this is going to be, you own it and you're going to be renting it?
Correct.
You know, one of the things
Family.
yeah, have you ever thought about whether or not you would do sort of a condo for the whole thing?
You know, they haven't owned the property that long. Honestly, we haven't talked about it too much, but
Because I'm
certainly
thinking
I
that-
would say that
I'm
would be.
thinking that there's so much that, you know, the sort of the shared driveways and shared utilities and a shared yard and all that sort of stuff. And at some point in the game, somebody's going to say, well, I don't want to own this two-family and spin it off. And then that two-family and the single-family is stuck with this and no rights of access, no shared, you know, no shared garage, no shared anything. And so that concerns me a little bit in going forward. But it's just a question I had as a thought.
I think it's well, this is just my opinion, I should let you answer that, except to say that that's an interesting suggestion, because one of the things we've looked at is whether there are ways to use parts of the yard.
Yeah.
Because there's a big barn in back of the existing house. There's, you know, it's not tons of land, but it does have some land in back.
Yeah, and
So,
then by the time you
yeah.
put in, you've got 2 driveways on lots that are less than 7,500 square feet. I mean, that just seems to me crazy. There's just all paving in a house.
Yeah, especially on this side, because of trying to provide the parking in the back particularly. You're ending up,
Yeah.
yes, you have extra paving because of the driveway, but also because you've got to go around to the back and create parking. You don't have to pave it, you could leave it as gravel, but that's very difficult to maintain, and it's probably not practical. Even if you have condominiums, you're gonna have to use a lot of area for parking.
Well, but yeah, but
It's
see.
especially important, but I think that's a good
I mean, as I'm
concept.
saying, as you're saying, I mean, yeah, that's true, you would, but at least these people will be able to share the yards. If this goes into separate ownership, then it's like, forget it, I don't want a shed close to my property line, any number of
What
things.
you're talking about is shared yard.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
really what a condominium
Yeah,
is. The
right.
land is shared, you know what a condominium is, I'm sure.
Right.
And you may not have decided or even thought about that possibility.
Who's
You
ever
would
had a
mean-
great experience in a shared condominium? Yeah, I mean, I have.
Yeah.
Well, some people do. I mean,
But I mean, as I said,
small.
I'm just thinking about going
But
forward.
that's not what we have in front of us.
it isn't, no.
Yeah, I know, but I'm worried about saying yes to something that is going to be too dense, too much paving, and no real, no access on really tiny. There's only 52 feet of frontage,
Right.
so.
Mrs. King.
I think that it's a good proposal. I'm concerned about the amount of paving, and I'm trying to remember, I think we only have a
It's the front
bylaw
yard,
on the front yard,
Yeah.
yeah.
which they're not violating, but I recognize what you're
Right,
saying. And I can
right.
see it when I look at plan, anyone can. There's no way around it.
And,
Yeah.
perhaps 4 cars aren't even needed because it is so close to Mattapan. I too lived in this neighborhood, my goodness, I lived at 100 Blue Avenue.
Yeah, I take the red line every day.
And I walk to the red line every day, yes, and it's very convenient that way, and I think this is a very good use of that land for this particular neighborhood. I'm also thinking that as far as having to have a 2-family on either side of a new 2-family, I think this case is a little bit different in that the house that's not the 2-family is yours. So you personally could not be upset with having a 2-family next door. And I think that provision was meant so that people owning a 1-family don't have 2 families growing up all around them. And that would not be the case here. So I think it's a good idea. I think it's a very good idea. I just wish there was more room for less.
Yeah, I mean, on the parking, I would respond by saying that the town bylaw in a C zone only requires 1 parking space per apartment.
Right.
So there is nothing in our bylaws that require that 4 paved parking spaces be created in the backyard. This was,
just could make it
we're
more
showing you this to show
attractive
that
for-
it is possible,
Yeah, yeah.
depending on
Yeah.
how you felt about it.
So I'm
Because we've cut the parking in the last, I think.
Equally
decision we
close to
had.
the T.
Yeah, right.
No, it's true.
So the question you had is whether or not, what was the board's indication of whether there would be some sense of the 2-family? I think you're hearing that it's pretty dense. I have a couple of questions myself. You said it was a state highway. Is it really a state highway? I know
138.
Yeah.
it's a state numbered route. Is it a state highway?
I always thought, yeah, that end of it.
Okay, so you're
Yes,
gonna
oh,
need a curb.
yes, oh, yes,
So
absolutely.
what
It's in my-
indication do you have you get a curb cut from the Department of Transportation, do you think? Right next to that other curb cut?
Well, we don't know. We might have to put the driveway on the other side.
Yeah.
I think
It's
we
a
have better
distance-
chance
there-
of
there-
extending a curb cut and then asking for a brand new one.
I don't know about that.
You may know better than I do. I
Yeah.
do know that it's an issue. We are aware of that, and we do.
I think it's a fundamental issue to the use of this lot, because you've got to establish that you've got access to it. And if it is really a state highway, then it's under the jurisdiction of the Department of Transportation. You're going to have to talk to them.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
So I actually don't think we're ready for this partly because of that.
Yeah.
The way you've got these curb cuts shown, they're right next to each other. I'm not sure they would do that. It could also be that the town may have something to say, given the way that they regulate parking. I'm just not 100% sure in my head about who runs this section of, see, the distinction I'm drawing is, you could have a state-numbered route. That is, it's only numbered for the convenience of the public. The state has jurisdiction over it to the extent that it, like sections of 28 are like that through town. Brook Road is a town road, but it's signaled 28. So I think we want to know that, about how you're going to get in the lot.
Route 138, I'm quite
it's
sure
full
is
length.
state highway, therefore I'm quite sure the issue you're talking about is a live issue.
Yeah, okay.
Would they grant a permission to have a new driveway created right next to the existing one in the adjacent
Right.
house?
Or would they have to relocate it, in which case it might impact your design?
Right, I believe we've talked about that back and forth, and it is, and so I think it's a good question. I think it's possible to have the driveway on the other side, but yes, it might impact the design.
Well, then it might push you then more towards the condo idea, and that you're using the driveway that you've already got.
If what you're saying is, well, maybe you haven't decided yet,
I don't
but
know what we're
suggesting
saying,
that there are a couple of things that could be looked at that might help make this, so that's interesting that you'd like us to look at that
Well, I
first.
think you
Because
need-
I felt that what I would have to say to you is, well, it's either going to be on this side or it's going to be on that side, because by the existing regulations, you're not supposed to put two driveways right next to each other. Now, you have to go and you have to ask, for the permission for the
Right.
curb cut, and then you would ask them if they would be willing to consider allowing it here, even though that isn't according to regulation, and they might say no.
I think the other issue that I have is that while it's a large lot for your property, I think it's a small lot for a two-family. It might be a large lot or a regular-sized lot for a two-family in the neighborhood as it's existing. But for us to vary the terms of the bylaw to permit a two-family when it's not eligible for the special permit, I think that's asking a lot. I do. We don't do that. And I think the single-family, yeah, I get the whole eclectic mix. I think that's what's nice about this area. But you've heard me say this before, Marion, I'm concerned about establishing a precedent where some of these smaller lots that, you say this might not exist anywhere else, maybe it will. And once we get into the habit of saying, yeah, I know the special permit doesn't apply, if this qualified for the special permit, then I think we'd be having a reasonable conversation. But what's happened here, I think, is we've looked collectively at the special permit and said, well, we're not eligible for the special permit, but we can consider granting a variance for the two-family. I don't actually support that thinking, because I don't, it's already a lot that's small for a regular single family, because it's only got 50 foot of frontage, as Kathleen indicated. So my sense is that if you can establish access off the state highway, that's a real plus, because then we know where it is. And I would build the design off of that. But I think the two-family might be a bridge too far, given the collection of the fact that it doesn't have the protection of the special permit provisions of the bylaw, where we would be able to permit a two-family under the special permit. And we're really talking about a variance, and it's already an undersized lot because it's been grandfathered. That's my sense. But, as always, I want to hear from the members of the board. So that's a long way of saying, I think we should continue this, and you guys should think about what you want to do in light of what we've said. And I find like we do this a lot, actually, but I think it's going to make for a better application for you and for us. And if you're committed to the two-family, I think you've got a hurdle to overcome, because I think it's a fairly rare event that what you're really asking for is for a variance on an undersized grandfathered lot for a one-family to a two-family. That's a big ask for this board. It's probably, it's less of an ask given its location, because there is this, as Mr. Carl Johnson indicated, I think fairly artfully, it said it was an eclectic, he said an erratic mixture of one and two family homes, which is terrific. And I think that's part of why people like this.
Yeah.
In other words, it's not a more uniform set of homes like we'd see over Cunningham Park, for example. That I think we wouldn't consider it at all. So it's not crazy to come in here, but if you ask my sense my sense is it's a big ask. So, members of the board, do you want to be heard?
Well, I mean, I
addition
think,
to
you
all that I
know,
just
yeah,
said?
no, I think we sort of have indicated some issues, that concerns we have, and I think it's maybe rethinking, and I actually finding out the access is a huge issue. I mean, whether you're going to get a curb cut.
Well, I think, I don't know, but.
I think they'll let you off
I think
the
they'll
highway.
give us a
Yeah.
curb cut.
I just don't know where they
The only thing
would.
is that they
Where?
might not give a curb cut right next to the driveway for the lot next door, which means you need
Yeah.
the driveway in a different location.
Yeah,
And we already are aware of that, and we just didn't think that that was the order in which you would do it, but I suppose you're right. I mean, you could get the variance and all that and not get the curb cut, and then maybe you'd have to come back, I don't know.
And I
I'm more
think given
concerned
the-
about your concerns about the two-family, obviously, that's much more fundamental.
Yeah. And then given the nature of the lot, I really do think access is important, because one of the things you're trying to do is take advantage of efficient access, which makes all the sense in the world, but that requires that you go right next to the curb cut, and the department might not want you to do that.
Yeah, so that we can find out about. I just, with your indulgence, I'd just say a couple more comments on the location. I mean, I'm not convinced one way or the other, and I don't own the property, and I'm not making the investment. But I do know that it's a big investment to create new real estate, that you're paying a lot to, you spend a lot of money, you have to make money. And the difficulty in this neighborhood is getting a good investment, creating something attractive that fits in with the neighborhood, but also gives you the return so that you would actually go ahead and do it. Now, we haven't discussed this at great length, and it's really up to the owners to decide what might give them a good return. But that, I think, in part, in my view anyway, is why I considered encouraging them to try to doing the two-family. It's designed in the same way. I mean, it would be the same house. The difference is, you're right, there would be two families, there would be more cars. That's why we were looking at parking in the back. But it's not going to be, it's not visually going to be different. If you look at the types of houses in this neighborhood, they all look as if they could be the same house, whether they're two-family or one-family. And so I guess, I don't know that it's precisely a zoning issue, and I know you're the Board of Appeals, but I also know a Board of Appeals looks at a lot of different factors. So we will probably, we'd certainly ask to continue, I think, is that right? We'd come back, we'll have further discussion. Maybe we'll be able to convince you, maybe not. But also, I hope maybe you'll just drive around the neighborhood a little bit and think about it in the meantime, and maybe whatever decision you make, I'm sure would be the one that's best for the town, so, and for the applicants as well.
Fair
Could
enough.
we possibly clarify the list of concerns, just so when I walk back in here, I'm right on point?
So you heard a fair bit about density.
Step one is curb cut, right?
You want to talk to Mass DOT about a curb cut off of 138. You heard general sense of density. You heard from me the fact that it's a lot with 50 feet of frontage, that you're asking for a variance from a one-family zone to a two-family zone. And while there was a lot of talk about a special permit, we know that that doesn't apply. And that's really what it boils down to. And the reason why we might consider it, we will consider it if it's asked, is of the erratic mixture of single-family homes. I want to say eclectic. It's not eclectic. It is erratic, according to Mr. Johnson. It's a well-done letter. It's not generally done. It's a significant request on a small lot. And I think Mrs. McKettrick makes a fair point about its visual appearance, but there is a use issue as well. It's also an expectation. I mean, there's been testimony to say that you didn't know you had the lot. So, I don't think that it's going to rise and fall on that, but in terms of the hardship, we've got to think about that in granting a variance. So, it doesn't feel to me like a hardship. It feels like an opportunity that
I need to have my family.
I think it's great.
I think it's a great thing.
You will not, if you're talking about putting two houses on one lot, that's a whole different thing. There's been no testimony that said that you would forever never sell that house. So I don't give that anyway.
Well, you never, I mean, how could you ever say
I
that?
agree. So it's got nothing to do with that.
If you
Maybe
created a
it's not 20 years
condominium,
older.
These are two separate
you
properties.
would establish the common use of the two lots. I don't know if it's a good idea or not a good idea, we'll talk about it. It's a somewhat different way of managing the property, and it certainly would work for what you're talking about now, and in the future, it would be a small condominium. We have some like that in Milton, not a lot. Some people are taking two families and converting them, and there is the rare three-family.
It's a condominium right next door, right?
Exactly, this is a condominium to the right, which was a two-family
Yeah,
originally.
right. No, I mean, I don't have as much of a concern, because I live over in Belcher Circle, where the lots are 5,000 square feet. But, you know, the whole density of what you've proposed is a problem, I think, for me. And so and I'm really worried about how that is all gonna work,
Okay,
so.
So that's it.
that's very helpful.
Okay, we'll continue this hearing without prejudice.
Yes.
How long is the applicant requesting to be?
What would be good?
What are dates?
We're going to need a little time to deal with Mass Highway, I think.
Whenever the next, what is it?
Would it usually be about a month? Would that be normal? I don't know what you have in your schedule. I know you're pretty busy in March.
Perhaps Mr. Leonard will be back.
Perhaps.
I already have here.
I think you're full, aren't you?
13th and the 15th.
So you have availability the 13th?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I do not.
No, they're full already, I think, because I already have some. I mean, I think this is going to take some work to try to figure out whether we can make a good argument based on some of these concerns. So if you're going to, it's going to take 5 weeks, then give us the 5 weeks. I think we could probably use it.
You want the end of March, beginning of April, what do you?
Whatever you think you can fit in. You don't have a schedule
I'm
yet.
looking at your first available. I'm pretty confident in my ability to grab a
Yeah,
curb cut
whatever you,
and do this
but you need to
research.
announce it tonight, don't you? Isn't that how
Yeah.
you do it? Yeah, so they need to pick a date, and from my perspective, any of those times is fine. But are you going to be around?
Yep.
End of March, beginning of April?
Unfortunately and fortunately, all I'm doing is right there for the next couple of months.
So what's your schedule like? I mean, any idea?
My schedule's bad.
28th of March?
My schedule's bad that week.
No, wait a minute, yeah, that's bad for me too. I'm just saying.
Like the
That comes-
21st until whatever that Monday is after Easter,
The second.
the 2nd.
Looks like it's pretty much open, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I'd prefer the 3rd or the 5th.
I have BSO tickets on the 5th.
April 3rd?
I could do the 3rd.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, April
This
3rd.
hearing's continued to April 3rd at 7:30. Thank you very much.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you.
Appreciate your service.
We're adjourned.
Okay, thanks.